how to go about. We had some session together. I think that should be in 2021 or 2022. We had a couple of sessions together for we have about 3 or 4 different sessions together. And in total, we had about 6 hours together just trying to uh, bring into reality what you are saying today. We had opportunity to formulate some of the ideas that was brewing in my mind. We had the opportunity to, put everything together so that it becomes what it is today. And because of that collaboration, we were able to start School of Transformational Leadership, which has been doing very excellently well around the world. Very soon, by June 16, 2025, we are going to be having School of Transformational Leadership fully operational. And then our courses are going to be taken online, and it's going to be 100% online. And for anyone who desire leadership and everyone who desire to grow their leadership ability, it will really afford you an opportunity to really learn what it takes to be a good and respectable leader. So beginning from next month, which is February, we're going to open up, there's going to be, we're going to open up our registration process. So anyone who wants to take their personal leadership journey and for neighborhood transformation will begin to do that right from February. And also, I'm just making a quick announcement before we go into what we have for today. And secondly, if you know you have a passion for writing, you have a desire to write, you are gifted in writing, there is an opportunity for you to also join us, to join our esteemed team of writers at Africana Leadership Digest. Africana Leadership Digest is part of creation that I and Kule were able to put together. So if you want to join our esteemed team of writers, you are free to do so. You can visit our website, www.africanaleadershipdigest.com for more information. You will see, you go to the website, explore the website, and you will see how you can link up with us to become a writer. And if you want to explore more about what we are doing at School of Transformational Leadership, you can also go to our website, www.schooloftransformationalleadership.com. You will see some of the things we've been trying to do. We have actually been on this for some time now. It's not really easy, but we are rest assured that what we are putting in place are beginning to see the light of the day. Today, I have a very special guest with us today who is going to be co-hosting with me in this Leadership Blueprint podcast. Kunle has been a very close ally of mine. Even though we went to the same secondary school together, we were not really that very close. Though we greet one another. If there is need to interact with one another, we do so. But our friendship only became very solid when we went into the university, and we happened to go to the same university at Agowoye. We were also roommates for many years, and because of that connection, we grew together, went to the same fellowship together, did so many things together as brothers, and growing together, challenging one another. And this is how far we have taken that journey from 1997. For that long, our values, our worldviews, the way we see things has remained consistently the same. And that is why we could be here to share some of the experience that we have gathered together over the years to share with you. I just want to emphasize that some people may think we are experts. Well, we are not presenting ourselves as experts, but what we are doing is basically to present ourselves as passionate lovers of Africa, passionate lovers of what it means to be a leader. We're trying to contribute our own quotas to the development of leadership across Africa. We believe this program is going to go a long way in helping a lot of people, particularly those who are under the age of 35. That is where our passion really lies. We are more interested in developing young adults and teenagers and all those people below the age of 35, because whether you like it or not, the 70% of African population today is made up of these categories of people. And if we don't focus our attention on them, then we are not going to see a new Africa or a new nation that we all desire within our continent. Today, by the special grace of God, we're going to be sharing different ideas, exploring different ideas of leadership. And that is why we are beginning with the question, what is leadership? I know Kunle, I know him very well. He's been studying leadership for so many years, and he's going to bring a lot of depth to our conversation today. So, Kunle, I just want you to go ahead. I know I've done a bit of introduction of you. I just want you to tell the viewers who you are and what they should be expecting through this conversation. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Oshineye. Of course, I like to fondly call you Solomon. That's my special name for him. Yeah, but thank you for this invitation. I think it's a great honor and privilege to do this together, considering that we literally grew up together, we're in our formative years. And all of these times, by the grace of God, we remain consistent on this pathway. Our passion are very much intertwined. And so it's a natural thing for me to join forces with you to add and create this kind of value. So my name is Kunle Bangwo, as my friend has said. My interest really lies in seeing leadership development in people across all ages. Although I have to say, like my friend said, we have a bias towards the younger generation, because if we don't invest in that space, then we can say we're jeopardizing our futures. So it's imperative that we make that our focus. Nonetheless, we want to also see that the older generation are also benefiting from this platform. And by the grace of God, we hope that this will become something that is highly resourceful for all age groups, nonetheless. So thank you very much, my friend.
Thank you very much for that brief intro. Some years back, I think probably in 2017 or thereabout, I was just thinking about why is Africa the way it is? Why are things seems to be retrogressing rather than things moving forward? And during that time of deep thought about what could likely be the problem of Africa, I was able to highlight about 21 problems that I think Africa or that is facing Africa as a whole. And at the end of that article, I was able to after I wrote that article, somebody, of course, you will expect reaction from people. Somebody spoke up or tried to critique what I wrote and was asking, so what do I think is the way forward? That it is easy to identify a problem. So what exactly do you think is the way forward? Well, after that person wrote that thing, it set me thinking again. And I was actually able to come to the understanding that although Africa has so many problems, it's not just one problem, but the summary of the problem of Africa is that because of lack of leadership and because we are unable to galvanize good leaders who can transform the human resources and the natural resources that we have in Africa, because we have people who cannot, really transform these resources into something good for the society. And because of that, Africa continues to be, Africa continues to be the talk of the day, in the negative. But then after that encounter, I was able to identify leadership as the main problem of Africa. And I concluded that if we can solve the problem of leadership, then we can effectively address every other facet of challenges that is facing Africa. So I just want to ask you, knowing fully well that this is a problem in our continent, what do you think is your own idea of leadership? I know we've been on these things for so long. What is your idea of leadership?
Well, thank you again, my friend. I'm very much conscious that we are touching a nerve here when we speak about leadership in Africa. And by extension, you would find out that the challenges around leadership is not limited to Africa alone. It's a global thing, and I'll probably say it's a human thing. It's a human challenge. I would say that the problem is not that we don't have leaders. It's the kind of leadership that is the issue. So if you ask me then how I view leadership, I would say, maybe in starting, everyone is being led somewhere. The question is whether where you arrive is where you really want to be. So leadership is that capacity to take a people, to take an environment, to take a situation from one point to another. But I want to qualify this subject so that we can get the most value out of it. I want to kind of even say true leadership. I want to say true leadership is really the capacity to transform the lives of people and their circumstances positively in a way that brings a restorative effect. Now, I know I'm throwing out words. This, I hope, we'll have the opportunity to address a bit more as we go further. But the point for me is this. If we talk about restorative or restoration of people as an act of leadership, you have to ask the question, what or where should these people be? If you think about it in terms of maybe a nation or or maybe a corporate environment, the question is, where do we want to go, or where do we need to go? Where do we need to be? And what does it take to get there? How do we chart our course from where we currently are to where we need to be? Which means that the leader or the people in positions of leadership are not preoccupied by themselves or by their own interests. It's more of what is in the best interest of the collective, particularly when you talk about a nation. Where do we need to be? And from that point onwards, from that point, you then design everything else in hope of getting you there. Because otherwise, if there's no end in sight, if there's no vision of a place to be, then leadership is impossible. You're going to be meandering around circumstances, around events, and you really get nowhere. Perhaps that is the issue that we've been facing, in the sense that if you ask me, so let's say if you pick a nation in Africa, let's say Nigeria, and you ask yourself, where do we want to be as a nation? Then you find out that the quality of the answer we come up with will, in effect, start to give indications of the kind of leadership we need. Then the question will then arise, do we have the human resources? Do we have the will? Do you have the intellectual capacity and all of these other resources to get us there? But if that initial question is not answered, that where do we need to be? Then everything else is just chasing shadows, is just walking in a maze. When someone is walking in a maze, there's a lot of movement, but that movement heads nowhere. And I think that's one of the problems. So I have avoided defining leadership for a purpose, so that we can talk about the pertinent issues, and then you find out that the meaning itself will start to emerge. But let me leave it at that, and let you have your say on this.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think what I can hear very clearly, and I believe our viewers out there can also hear what I'm hearing, is that what you're saying is that before we can even talk about leadership, we have to talk about where are we going? Because for you to be able to get to where you are going, you need somebody to lead you there. But unfortunately, what we have in the society, particularly because we are not, even though we are addressing the problems of the world, but our focus is on Africa. The problem we have in Africa today is that we don't have a clear cut direction of
A
where
vision
we are going.
of
A vision
what
of
is the
where we're
vision?
going.
What does Nigeria look like? What is
Exactly.
Nigeria of our dreams? Now, don't forget, my friend, it's easy to dream. Anybody can dream. But the
Exactly.
question is, you can, and there's no problem having a dream. The point is, okay, if you dream, whether it's a lofty dream or what you call a realistic dream or whatever it is you call it, the question is, from that dream, how do you map your way back to where you are?
Mm.
And then ask the question, what do we need to do to have a progressive step towards that direction? So, which means you have to build milestones and say, okay, assuming this is a journey of 1,000 years, and a typical leader there, maybe it's just going to be there. Let's say the current generation will live 50 years. So you have to say, what can we do in 50 years to get us going towards that direction?
Mm.
Then you do your part. And whilst you're doing it, you start to say, how do we bring people along to continue to go in that direction, so that we get to somewhere that is enriching for the lives of the people that are under the influence and the impact of that leadership?
Now, I want to ask you this question. We've been alive for over 40 decades, for over 40 or 4 decades now. We are gradually approaching our 50s. Now, I want to ask you, in all this year that you have lived, have there been any time that Nigeria has had a clear-cut vision of where we are going? And if that is not the case, what do you think can be done? Because we need that very urgently to get us to where we're going.
That's a very deep question, my friend. And we in 40 plus years, we've seen a few dispensations in terms
Yeah.
of governmental administrations. And when a particular government comes in, it will say, this is our so and so agenda, 7-point agenda, 5-point agenda, blah blah blah.
We
And
don't even get to hear that anymore again.
well, because people have seen that, okay, I think this is not the way to go. That is gone out of style. Let's just say. We've had various semblances of vision, but the point is this. This is where I would say statesmanship comes into it.
Mm,
Because if we have statesmen who think about a nation that will be good enough for our great-grandchildren,
mm,
then that immediately takes you or your own self-interest out of the equation. And then you begin to ask yourself, okay, what does what adds value to the life of a citizen?
mm.
Okay. What do we want to be known for in the world? So if you take now no country is perfect, obviously not.
Exactly.
If you take various countries around the world and you look at that nation, some of them that we admire, they seem to have some semblance of what they want to be about.
Mm,
Now, they make their mistakes, they create some troubles, they fix them and all that. But in some environments, you just see a semblance of, okay, let's have some baseline for all of our citizens. So as citizens, we want to have the right infrastructures that will enable productivity. Some of them can say we want to be the technological hub for the world. Some of them will say we want to be the financial capital for the world. So I take maybe like Singapore. I remember in the great man Lee Kuan Yew, when Singapore had just come just after the Second World War, after they had all their issues, they determined that, okay, you know what? How do we attract value as a nation?
mm,
And they decided to attract businesses. They wanted to be like a business hub where even though they have no national natural resources as we tend to know them these days, they
mm,
wanted to be a commercial capital. They wanted to be an industrialized nation.
mm,
And so they designed the whole of society along those lines.
mm,
In fact, they also say, you know what, as citizens of this nation,
mm,
there are certain things that we have to agree to.
mm,
We have to know by certain kind of discipline.
mm,
And as a consequence of that, certain laws, certain enactments were put in place, which might have seemed to be harsh.
mm.
But the question is, where they are right now, does that indicate that they made some good decisions? I would say yes.
Mm.
Okay. Now, I remember when we were much younger, as in early 80s, I remember that time when we wanted to do anything in school or in society, without anybody telling you, you will queue up. Let's say you wanted to maybe pay for a bill at the NEPA office, you will be on the queue. And God will help you if you step out of that queue to disrupt. Now, somehow, a certain kind of, if you like, discipline is being impacted on the citizenry so that even a child knows this is how we ought to behave in society.
Mm.
And although, unfortunately, that was truncated in a way. Now, I don't want to get into the argument as to whether it was a military. That's not the point. The point is, what should the citizen be? What should the nation be known for?
Mm.
What constitutes value to the nation and to its citizens?
Mm.
How do we have enabling environment that brings out the best out of the life of human beings?
Mm.
How do we educate ourselves? What do we want to celebrate? How do we unleash the potential
Mm.
of our citizenry?
Mm.
Those are the things. How do we make sure that our resources are a blessing,
Mm.
not a cost?
Mm.
Those are the things that functional, pragmatic leaders think about.
Mm.
So design the programs and policies that will help to achieve those aims. Because if you don't do that, it doesn't matter what dream you have. It doesn't matter how much vision, how lofty your vision is. You will get nowhere. You just be going around the circle and beating about the bush. So, and you will find out that these things are not really far-fetched, my friend. The basic thing to say, as a nation, we need to have energy in
mm,
order to address industrialization and productivity. That is not such a big deal, if you like.
mm.
However, somehow, some of these things are issues in some of our nation states. And the problem is, why is the kind of leadership that we have come to unable to address these issues effectively and thereby creating frustrations in the minds of citizens? These are the questions. But I'm with you. We need to start looking at these things and then proffer, if you like, suggestions as to this is what we could do. Because it's not enough to highlight the problems. We should also be saying, well, and proffer solutions. It does not mean that they're the perfect solution, but it's a way to trigger thought
Yeah.
and that we're all thinking as solution providers rather than destructive critics.
Mm. Thank you very much. You mentioned Singapore while you were talking, and that reminded me of the fact that now, before the emergence of Singapore, of let's even say South Korea, Dubai, United Arab Emirates, China, even though China has been in existence for thousands of years, but when we are talking about the actual industrialization that took place in China, we are just talking about something that happened in the last 4 or 5 decades. It's not something that has been happening for thousands of years. So that brings me to the understanding that this transformation we are talking about does not take a century to occur.
It is possible.
It is possible, and we can make it happen. Even if we make up our mind that we want to make it happen in the next 1 decade, for example, in Nigeria, if we decide as a nation that we want to see a transformation in our nation in the next 10 years, I think it is possible.
It is possible.
We have seen nations like Singapore do it. We have seen nations like United Arab Emirates do it. We have seen nations like South Korea do the same. And we are seeing China from no country, from a country nobody even pays attention to, are suddenly, migrated from where they were, and now they are now one of the most powerful nations in the world. So, which means
Therefore, I'm going to ask a question, my friend. I'm going to ask a question.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask a question in a second, I will crystallize this thought and I will ask you a question.
Yeah.
So what we are really saying, therefore, is that leadership is the capacity to take a people, a nation, an organization from where they currently are to a desirable state. Now, that is a very broad definition, but that's what it is. Because in reality, when you talk about leadership, you cannot lead and stand still. You are on some kind of journey from where you currently are to where you want to be.
Exactly.
This is why the subject of leadership can apply to an individual, to a group of people, to a family, to a corporate organization, and as well as to a nation, because it's always a journey from one point to another. Now, that journey may have many milestones in between, may have a lot of, if you like, detours, segues, obstructions, hills, valleys, challenges. But nonetheless, it is still a journey from one point to a desirable state.
And it is a journey that is possible.
And it is a journey that is possible.
Yeah.
Now, and the other thing is that you never embark on the journey unless your mind is set to change the status quo.
Exactly.
I'm going to ask you a question.
All right.
I know that you have also been looking at the subject of leadership for a long time. As a matter of fact, as I start to think about this, I feel like, you know what? Maybe all of our lives we have really been doing this.
Exactly.
We've not used the subject of leadership. We've not called it leadership.
Yeah.
But in reality, all that we've been about has been in this space. Let me ask you this. Why do you think leadership is important
Mm.
in our context? Not only for Africa, but literally in as human beings. Why do you think leadership is really important?
Yeah, for me, based on what we've been saying since the beginning of the podcast, there are two essential things that are very, very crucial to leadership. Number one is inspiration. A leader is somebody who has the capacity to inspire other people. You know, leadership is not forcing people to do things or making people, you don't have to make people to do things. A leader does not make people or force people to do things. Leaders inspire people to do things. You will even discover that if you force people to do certain things, you may not get as much or a better result as much as if you inspire them to do things. So that is one thing that is very, very important about leadership. Leadership is about inspiring other people to get things done. Not only that, as you inspire people to get things done, leadership also involves you motivating them because along the journey, as they, you know, commence the journey of getting things done, just like we said, things will happen. There will be times of when morale of the people will be down. There will be times of disappointment. There will be times of failures. There will be different times that will happen. Crisis, societal crisis can emerge. We can even have a crisis such as the pandemic that we have, the COVID-19, which was very, very unpredictable. Nobody really knew how the whole thing will end up at the end of the day. Such a challenge can come up during our leadership journey. But the most important thing as a leader is the ability to continue to inspire and to motivate people when the chips are down. And for me, that is what I believe is the most important thing in leadership. The ability to inspire people, to motivate people, to get them to the destination you are going as a leader.
No, thank you for that. Now, obviously, it sounded like the way we began. We're looking at leadership that has, how do I put it, more of a corporate leadership that is corporate in nature. But it sounds to me like in order for this to become, if you like, relatable to everyone,
Mm.
because not everyone will have the capacity to lead a nation or a state or maybe even an organization. So it sounds to me like maybe the realistic place to start from is to actually look at personal leadership.
Mm.
Because unless you can lead yourself, unless leadership begins with you, you cannot give what you don't have.
Exactly.
Maybe that's really the problem, that we are looking for leadership in people who have not been groomed, who have not been cultivated as leaders.
Exactly.
So it's as if we are playing poker, where we are hoping to be lucky. And somehow we'll find somebody who will just somehow emerge and then just know how to lead.
Like
So
the popular philosopher would say, leaders lead thyself.
exactly.
You
You
have to
know,
lead yourself.
think about it, Shegun. Do you know that in our society, I'm talking about societies that value human life and other things, we will not allow somebody to drive on the road unless there is proof that they've passed their driving test and
Exactly.
qualified to drive. Is that not true? Now, even let's say marriage. Now, even though well, I have my views on that one, but most of the time, somebody will say, "We hereby issue you a license that you are now husband and wife." At least there's some kind of licensing. If you want to start a church or a business, you have to get some kind of license to do that.
Mm.
I'm not very much aware that we have any kind of qualification that we look for to say, oh, this person, because we have seen you do XYZ, now you are qualified to lead us. Now, are we in effect just playing poker with our lives by just assuming that someone can just emerge somewhere, as long as he has some money or some kind of clout, then is qualified to lead? Is that really some of the problems that we're facing?
Well, I think basically one of the basic challenge that we have is that when the kind of leadership we see across Africa is not just in Nigeria, it's across the entire continent, particularly in the sub-Saharan Africa. The kind of leadership that we see across the sub-Saharan Africa is the kind of leadership that is focused on self. And if you really want to do leadership the right way, you have to take the focus away from yourself and shift the focus on the people. Until we have leaders who are people-minded leaders, who are people-centric leaders, and not self-centered leaders, we're going to continue to have the same cycle of problem that we take. For instance, Nigeria, since independence, it's like we're just going round and round in circle. Why? Because the people who are presenting themselves as leaders are not interested in what will be the most important benefits for the led. What they are interested in is what they can grab from the center of power. How much can I grab, even for my generation that are yet unborn? And that is why you could see a leader, a leader who, because he does not know what the future holds for him, he decided to pay the school fees of one of his child in advance. He didn't know, because he couldn't imagine, he does not have what it takes to create the required resources that he would need to take care of his family in the future. He was already thinking of that future. And the only way the only solution for him was to steal as much as he could steal now and pay for the classes that the child has not even reached.
Yeah.
That is the kind of leaders that we have in our society today. They are not focused on the people. They are simply focused on themselves.
No, thank you. And thank you for bringing that observation. So it then means, just back to my previous point, that our focus, and I know that's exactly what we wanted to do, is to now look at what does, okay, let me rephrase that. We have seen some kind of leadership. And obviously, we're not too happy with what we see.
Mm.
We're not satisfied because we are thinking that this is not the kind of leadership we want.
Exactly.
So our mind is now saying, what does leadership look like in actual sense?
Mm.
Or maybe I should just say what I said before, what is true leadership?
Mm.
And how do we start to focus on the development of this true leadership so that somehow, time is a good thing, and everything happens in a cycle. Eventually, the crop generation that perhaps is destructing us in their leadership will eventually leave the scene.
Exactly.
But if what is coming along is not good enough to replace them, then it means we're going to go back. We're going to be in that same cycle, or probably even worse, because the challenges of the world
explains the reason why we are focusing on the age group under 35.
Exactly. So because challenges are going to be increasingly tough. There will be, every generation will present its own challenges. There will be different things. So I believe that the focus we have is right. And therefore, I want to now tune my question to how then do we develop? I think you already said it in part of it.
Yeah.
True leadership. Let me postulate first to say that True leadership, as you are saying, and I agree with you, is the capacity to influence through inspiration.
Inspiration.
In other words, it is possible for people to be coerced, to be manipulated, but true leadership is not born out of coercion or manipulation or any kind of destructive motivation. Rather, it is the capacity to influence through inspiration.
Mm,
And that inspiration is born out of a conviction
mm.
of
Of the
the
destination.
purpose
Mm,
or the vision that you have seen, that
mm,
a different kind of future is possible.
mm,
And I believe in it. And
mm.
I'm willing to
To invest in it.
sacrifice. I'm willing to invest in it and sacrifice together. But at this point, my intent is not to lead other people.
Mm,
I'm just really saying, personally, I believe in this.
mm,
Imagine that, let's somebody wants to build a business and you don't believe in that business. You've not done anything to prove that that is something that is worth your time.
mm,
And the first thing you go around to ask for is investment.
mm,
Well, investors will tell you, sorry, we don't think you're serious because we have not seen your passion in action.
mm,
We've not seen that you are convinced about this, your pursuit. And
mm.
until we see that, well, we don't have confidence that we should throw in our hard-earned resources into it. In other words, we're not inspired to follow you. We're not interested. We cannot be sure. So it means then that leadership does not begin externally. It's not something that is imposed on you externally.
Mm,
It's something that happens, it begins from inside of you.
mm.
I want you to expand that thought if you don't mind.
Well, there is in part of the curriculum we have in School of Transformational Leadership, there is a course that is taught on transforming your leadership. In other words, what it means is that for you to be a leader, that leadership transformation needs to begin with you. And until you are transformed as a leader, there is no way you can bring transformation to the society. And that is why I love this powerful quote from Mahatma Gandhi. He has suddenly become one of my favorite leaders in history. Mahatma Gandhi is not known to be wealthy, is not known to, he didn't even hold any political office, but his impact is well known all across the world. Mahatma Gandhi would say, be the change you want to see in the world. You see, it is very easy for us to postulate the way we want things to be, to tell people, do this, do that. But the most difficult thing is bringing ourselves to that same level of demand or requirement that we want other people to do. So for transformation to take place within the society, it has to begin with you. And if you cannot, if you don't have what it takes to bring that leadership to yourself and really demand more from yourself, more than what the society is even demanding from you, there is no way you can carry on this leadership responsibility that we are talking about. So the change really has to begin with you. But unfortunately, what we have in our society today are leaders that are not prepared. They are not prepared to lead themselves. And so it is becoming very difficult for them to lead others. Before you can be able to lead us up effectively, you have to be able to lead yourself to a certain level. And then it will be easy for you to lead others.
Absolutely. I think it is what one of my favorite authors, John Maxwell, describes as level one of leadership,
Exactly.
which is number one. And I also Obviously, my history with Dr. Miles Monroe.
Yeah.
He worked a lot in that space, and I was more or less referencing his definition of leadership. And I wanted to highlight something there because if our audience will go away with anything tonight or this evening
Mm,
or afternoon, as the case may be in the States, I would hope that there is something that they can start to work on right now
mm,
that has nothing to do with public leadership.
mm,
That is first and foremost personal in nature,
mm,
which is if you look at the components of what makes someone a leader,
mm,
it is the fact that at the very base of it,
mm,
there is a discovery of purpose.
mm, mm,
Meaning, you ask yourself, what am I really about?
mm,
So, if your name is Kunle, like I am, or your name is Shegun, as my friend is, what is Shegun really about?
mm,
Why is Shegun here? That this is a very personal journey
mm,
where you come to a realization that, wait a minute, I have a contribution to make in the world.
mm,
That contribution, that awareness of that contribution is really where your personal leadership starts from.
mm,
Now, invariably, that that sense of purpose
mm,
will start to manifest in pictures. You start to see it in pictures. And
mm,
that's what you call vision, because
mm.
you start to see how things could be. You start to see how your life could be different. You start to, and notwithstanding where you are. In fact, let me say this, Shagun, you know my story. There was one time I was working in a poultry house, but, but I knew that was not my end. I was seeing what Kunle 2.0, Kunle 2, 3.0 could be, honestly. So never mind, I was with Chicken, and Chicken was my best friend. But but
Like
obviously,
Jacob,
say that again,
like Jacob.
like Jacob. But I knew Chicken. I know that was not my destination. I know that was only a journey.
Yeah.
So I was seeing a future that was not in my present.
Mm,
And I think this is essential, particularly for our target audience, to begin to have that realization that, wait a minute, notwithstanding where I am right now,
mm,
there is a place that I belong to. There
mm,
is a difference that I can make in the world.
mm,
And I don't have to try to boil the ocean.
mm,
Maybe I should say that again. Meaning, the first assignment is not to change my nation state. It's not to transform Ghana. It's not to transform that. That's not the first assignment.
it's to
The first
transform
one is,
you.
let me understand who I really am.
Exactly.
And a conviction in that.
Yeah.
So that when somebody says, oh, what do you mean? You mean you can say, no, I really believe this.
Yeah.
That conviction is what fuels your passion to say, I not only say this, but I'm willing to go to what I'm saying.
Mm,
This is when leadership really begins.
mm,
Now, note that in all of this has nothing to do with another individual.
mm,
Now, as that passion begins to get generated inside of you,
mm,
you begin to take certain steps, which begins with first and foremost to say, what are my value systems that will enable me to arrive at where I'm going for? Because you don't want to self-sabotage. So
mm,
you're going to ask yourself, who do I need to be in order to get to where I need to be?
mm,
These are pertinent questions that an individual has to ask himself. And honestly, you can be age 7, you can be age 10, you can be age 13, you can be 20. These are personal questions. And I would say, but be your own secretary, be a self-documenter.
mm,
As you begin to write these things down, it begins to give you a, a documentation, a personal documentation of what you are about.
mm,
So that any day, anytime you can say, look, I know who I am. I know what this life is about. Never mind where I am right now, but I know. But let me not take all of the airtime. let me allow you jump in, Solomon, and just say more on
Yeah,
this.
I think we've already said a lot. There is still more to say. We can't say everything in a day. Uh, Definitely, there are still more coming over time, exploring other aspects of leadership. But as we begin to wrap up, I want to really ask, because I have known you, people outside may not really have heard so much about you because uh, because they don't know you. But I am talking as somebody who knows you. At least I have known you for well over uh, 30 years, since 19, even more than 30 years, since 1989. We've been together. We were in the secondary school. After a while, you came to the boarding house. We were in the boarding house together for several years, for about 6 years in the secondary school. And then we became very intimate friends since 1997. And we maintained that contact, that relationship, that closeness for that long. And then I can really say a lot about you. And I know you are a genuine leader, you are a passionate leader. You are a leader who desires to see transformation within the society. I just want to ask you some very close, uh, intimate questions that I know could benefit uh, our younger ones out there. So I want you to take us through the memory lane and tell us the very first time the leadership idea began to form in your heart. Because uh, I know we started reading John Maxwell together. I think that was 1998 or thereabout. I know we read uh, Developing the Leader Within You, Developing the Leaders Around You. I know that was the time we both read that book. And ever since that time, we've been building our appetite for leadership. So I just want you to help people out there and tell them when and exactly this leadership idea begins to form in your heart.
Thank you, my friend. This question you asked me, I'm a little close to tears right now, and and I'll tell you why. Because um, when growing up,
Mm,
I from primary school days,
mm,
somehow I've always found myself in a position where I would have to lead or be responsible for other people, maybe in my classroom or something, as a class captain and those kind of so. But the idea of leadership was never really in my mind. In
mm,
other words, I wasn't thinking of myself as a leader.
mm,
That wasn't, the reason was that somehow people of our background, we were never taught to see ourselves in that light. So we had to battle a lot of self-doubt, a lot of self-cancellation. However, as things progressed, yes, we were reading those books. We were asked to lead certain groups, whether in church or that
exactly.
place. But I wasn't thinking like a leader. I just knew, okay, I had some assignment to do and it needed to be done. And I'll be too embarrassed if I failed. That was the motivation. But if you ask me when the idea of leadership started to crystallize in my mind, it was really when I met Dr. Miles Monroe.
Mm,
And because of my training from Nigerian background, whenever you see a prominent person, most of the time you cower, you start to go into this false humility because of the respect you have for them, because you are in awe. It's almost like being starstruck, isn't it? But there was something it did to me that day. For the first time, I saw a prominent person being interested in me. So he said, "Oh, young man, are you waiting to see me?" I said, "Oh, yes, sir, yes, sir." He said, "Oh, please come, come." So, and then so he asked about me. I said, "Oh, I'm one of your mentees. I came from the UK and I'm here for this conference." Oh, he said, "Oh, you came all the way? Then he just grabbed me and hugged me. I've never seen somebody that prominent be interested enough to hug me. Most of the time, you stay afar. You are not even allowed to get near them. They probably somebody else will push you away. But I saw somebody who was showing me some of the things I thought it should be. I've always felt like, I would like to be able to relate to somebody who is very prominent, at the same time, be able to go to a child and relate with them without any problem. But I did not see that model by anybody.
Mm.
The first person that modeled that to me
Mm.
was Dr. Miles Monroe.
Mm.
So he didn't just grab me. He didn't say, oh, he then put his hand on my head and said, oh, we're going to work on your mind. He was doing so. I tell you what, I was lost for word for several minutes. I didn't even know what to say because that was a shock to my system. I
Mm.
wasn't used to that.
Mm.
But through that mentoring program, something happened in my mind.
Mm.
My mind shifted. I started to believe.
Mm.
It's almost like that story that was told of that young lion that then met an old lion, and that old lion started to roar at him. This was, by the way, it's a true story that happened in East Africa.
Mm.
I think it was in or Zimbabwe, one of those places.
Yeah.
That this lion, the older lion, started to roar at the lion, saying, "Come on, this ability to roar like me is in you." And it
Mm.
was roaring perpetually. It was saying, "Come on, do it. Come on, have a go." And eventually, that younger lion belted out his first roar. And it's a journey of self-discovery. In my journey, that very, very close-knit relationship with Dr. Miles Monroe, something happened to my mind.
Mm.
And that thing was a belief that, wait a minute, I am not what I've always thought I was. This self-cancellation, this self-doubt isn't what it should be.
Mm.
And I started to believe.
Mm.
That changed me dramatically.
Mm.
And not only that, I started to see that, wait a minute,
Mm.
it's not about other people. I have to make this investment for myself.
Mm.
And I became hungry, Solomon. I became so hungry that nothing was going to stop me.
Mm.
Whether it is in reading books or consuming materials, I started to, and it was not about leading anybody at this point. It was just about let me get cultivated. There's a lot more to say, but I will just wrap it up to say that that was really when it crystallized in my mind.
Mm.
And for everyone that's listening to me right now, there is that experience where it's very personal. It's not something that belongs to you that happens in a group. It's
Mm.
something that's very personal when you suddenly have this realization that, wait a minute, I also have a contribution to make, that I am not just loafing around. I'm not just around here to loaf around. There is something that I'm designed uniquely to contribute. And it's not about being like somebody else. It's not about copying somebody's intonation, somebody's tune, somebody's dress style. No, you will suddenly find out that the raw material to
Mm.
become who you are is already put in you by your creator.
Mm.
And you started to see that the real source of your leadership is your creator.
Mm.
He already predetermined it, knowing that there is something that you will arrive here on earth
Mm.
and you be able to do it in a way that nobody else can do it that way.
Mm.
Now, there are many cars. There is Mercedes, there's Volvo, but Volkswagen is Volkswagen. It will sound like Volkswagen.
Mm.
It does not need to be like a BM
Mm.
because it solves a Volkswagen problem. So
Exactly.
the point is not you trying to be everybody else. It's being who you are and cultivating who you are.
Mm.
This is what happens to sprinters. See, a Usain Bolt runs like a Usain Bolt.
Mm.
I mean, who else? Um,
And Lewis.
Carl Lewis will run like a Carl Lewis. And the beauty of their sprinting is in their uniqueness, is in exactly what they've been given with which to impact their world.
Mm.
This, for me, is the crucial journey that each person has to make.
Mm.
And it does not matter to me what age you are. In fact, through that experience, I now started to really value people. Imagine somebody that done that to me. Now, I find it very hard to walk past people
Mm.
without trying to embrace them and show that you mean something, you are valuable. So Dr. Maxwell will say, treat everybody like $1 million. Now, that is something that I've imbibed. When I meet you, I want to show you that you're valuable, regardless of what you feel about yourself,
mm,
because that was also what I received.
mm.
And that has really made a tremendous difference in my life. I will stop there because of our time.
Yeah, I know our time is fast spent, but I still have two more questions that I know will benefit viewers. Now, you've talked so much about Dr. Miles Moreau, who has also impacted my life in a very dramatic way. I think my first encounter with him was in 1997 when I listened to one of his sermon on potential. That literally took me to a new level in my life, and ever since that time, he's been somebody I have loved. I have listened to many times. I have read countless of his books, and he's still inspiring me today. I know there are other leaders who have impacted you and have left an imprint in your life. Can you briefly share with some of our people to let them know that this leadership journey is not a journey you can do solo run with? You need people in and around your life to go in that journey process with you. So tell us about more other leaders that have impacted you in this leadership journey.
I can say, Solomon, that literally, since I started to understand leadership, all my previous experience started to make sense.
Mm,
So, for example, as I now go back, I remember when I was 16 years old,
mm.
and I told one of my senior friends, or maybe 17, I said, I'm feeling bored. Then he made a statement, he said, the reason why you're feeling bored is because you don't have any plan for your life.
Mm, that's powerful. That's
That was not the answer I was looking for. I wanted him to say, maybe we should go and play football or something. But when he said that, suddenly it kicked in. A minute. So then I think he just mentioned maybe book. Why don't you? He borrowed me one of his books or something of that along those lines.
mm,
Now that was the last time I uttered that statement. I'm feeling bored
mm,
because suddenly I now found out that I can utilize my time in a way that is beneficial. So I started to read books. I started to do a lot of research.
mm.
Suddenly my eyes opened that there's a library in my own house. That my own dad has a library. I started to research. I had to do a lot of things.
Uh,
I had to consume books. That's one example.
mm,
Even you, my friend,
mm,
when we were together, living together,
mm,
I noticed something about you, which probably I'm saying for the first time today.
mm.
I noticed that you have very strong convictions. Once you decide that you want to do something, you just lock into it. That's it. I'm a little more diplomatic. I'm a little more, sort of open-minded in a way. So, but that was one thing I learned that, oh, wait a minute. Okay. Certain things cannot be left open. You got just to lock in.
For diplomacy, you just have
Yes,
to go for it.
I picked that from you, my friend.
Mm, thank
So my point is that we all are impacted at each step on our journey.
you.
Now, from a church perspective, I've been privileged to sit under the administration of or the ministry of Bishop David Oyedepo, and it's also impacted because I saw a man who, just like every other Nigerian, came from, I mean, insignificant background,
Mm,
but through sheer commitment,
mm,
through sheer dedication, through sheer belief in in the course of his life, has become what he is now. Now, look, sometimes we don't appreciate the people that we have around us
mm,
until they've kind of transitioned. Then we start to now say, eulogize them.
mm,
But when we see people like this do something significant in an environment where everything looks like it's so hard to achieve,
mm,
that is something to be celebrated. So he's another person. I can count severally people that have impacted me along the way. Is it John Maxwell? Is it other Robert Liardon? Is it other people that I've never met, but I learned about them through books. Even our favorite author that time, Dr. Mike Murdoch.
Like Buddha.
Yes. So what I'm trying to say is this: I am just a product of several influences.
mm,
So they can all take credit for what I am becoming. And I tell you what, I'm only just emerging,
mm,
but each of them can say,
mm.
I have an input in your life.
Thank you. Now, one final question, and then we will wrap it up. Now, what leadership journey would you have advised your younger self to pursue if you had a new opportunity to commence your leadership journey again? What is the advice? What leadership advice would you give your younger self?
Well, I'll probably say that if I was talking to somebody who was at age 16, age 14, what will I be suggesting to them to do?
Mm,
And that question, we've started to answer it in a practical way.
mm,
So every month, or let's say every quarter, we have an investment in the youth of our own town,
mm,
right? And what we ask them to do is more or less give them the opportunity to cultivate the things that we were not able to do when we were their age.
mm,
So it's a youth leadership platform, and they will decide their own curriculum most of the time. They will present. They're learning how to speak. They're learning how to answer questions, how to run um, uh, breakout sessions,
mm,
and those kind of things. Those are the things that somehow maybe I stumbled on haphazardly in my own journey.
mm,
Um, if there's one thing that I think I'll probably love to have done better,
mm.
I'll probably say hmm, it's a question I thought about it long and hard before this. But I'll probably say it's embracing maybe to become a quicker learner.
Mm.
And the reason why I say that is this. I found out that in my own personal journey, I've learned through a few mistakes. I will have gone through a few mistakes before the lesson sinks in. And sometimes you don't have that luxury. I'll,
Exactly.
I'll give an example. Maybe this will be crystallize it. I happened to work at two poultry houses. The first one, I was, I tell you, a wreck. Meaning, I, I was complaining, I was angry, my attitude was so poor because I was thinking, well, why on earth will I be put in this situation? I was wallowing in self-pity. But I think God saw that I needed to learn some lessons. So he then scheduled for me another poetry experience. But this time I'd
Part two of
gotten
your lesson.
exactly. This time I'd gotten better. And it was like two contrasts. The first one, I really did not get much out of it. But the second one, that was when I learned to take responsibility for other people's business.
Mm,
Such that by the time I was finishing from that poetry, I became an advisor to the owner or to the managing director.
mm.
Whenever he wanted to start a new venture, he would say, "Go and call me Kunle to give me advice." And I was only a young man. I was probably 17. He would say, "Kunle, I'm trying to do this. What do you think?" I started to learn how to advise a business owner.
Mm.
And I can tell you that what I'm doing right now is exactly a mirror of what I was doing back then.
Wow.
So, so my point is embracing challenges uh, and seeing that, look, the challenges that we face, God orchestrated them in order to bring out the best in us and then to embrace it without complaining and then thinking, oh, why me? I wish I can leave it. No, no, that is a journey that you've been scheduled to take.
Mm.
Take it and learn your lessons, grow out of it. Because once I grew out of that business, Solomon, let me tell you I'll just keep it very brief. One of those times I saw a challenge that the chicken were being attacked by soldier ants. So without being instructed, I devised a solution to address it. The owner of the business was so impressed because he didn't ask me to do it. The other guys, well, my colleagues didn't do it. I just took the initiative. That impressed him so much. And I think that was one of the reasons why I thought, I think this man, I can almost, in a way, delegate most of this business to him. And I can lean on his advice because he seemed to have some kind of initiative. These are things that once our heart and mind is attuned to our present circumstance, we begin to have inspiration, begin to have initiative that will make that better. And that will be the qualification for the next phase in our life. So maybe that's something that I would say I would have loved to be able to learn those lessons quicker rather than waiting for a second opportunity to learn it.
Oh, on that note, we want to thank you, Kole, for being a wonderful co-host of this program, Leadership Blueprint Podcast. I
Thank
want
you, man.
to sincerely appreciate you. You know uh, how much wonderful you've been to me. Uh,
The feeling is mutual, my friend.
During my darkest hour, there'll be another time to tell the story. During my darkest hour, you were the one who was there for me. And I cannot tell how much you mean to me. And I've valued our relationship all these years. And I know the same goes with you. I want to
100%.
appreciate you uh, for uh, for making up your mind to co-host this program with me. We hope that we will see more of you on this platform, and we hope that you will continue to inspire people with your stories, uh, which is uniquely peculiar to you. And I pray that people will be able to draw lessons that will impact them in their journey, in their leadership journey as well. So I
Thank
want
you
to
very much.
thank you so very much.
And I want to thank you to my friend for the courage, your leadership to set up this platform. I'm a core value creator, but you own this platform.
Yeah,
I don't want that to be lost on anyone. You own this platform. I'm a core value. I'm coming along because I believe implicitly in anything you do. Because
exactly.
we've been on a journey. You've been tested. I mean, my friend, you've been tested very severely. So I know the content that God has put in you, and I know that the best is yet to come. So I congratulate you, and I'm glad to be on the same journey with you.
Thank you. So on that note, viewers, we want to appreciate you for being part of this program. Hope to see you next month for another powerful edition of Leadership Blueprint. God bless you.
God
Bye-bye.
bless you. Thank you. Bye bye.